Hey there, micro folks. This is Mr. Hooker, and today we are doing Chapter 17, Wage Determination. This is what determines about how much you get paid, how much they want to pay you, how much you should get paid. It is awesome. Let's get into it. So these two videos will be in the class. They're kind of a comedy thing, but it's interesting to say the least. Some Kristen Bell and I don't even know who plays Remy in that other one. It's okay. Two sides of a coin there. So labor, wages, earnings. So wages are the price paid for labor. It is your direct pay plus your benefit. So um, I don't know if I have anybody in here that's ever gotten one of these, but if you get to a certain level, you get that offer letter, right? And that letter often will tell you, hey, this is how much we're offering you. This is the pay plus X amount in benefits. And if you have multiple offers, then you have to compare them because sometimes the pay will be more and the benefits will be less than others. And you have to determine, like, how much do I care about benefits? As young people, you may not care that much about benefits. When you get a little bit older, you might care a little bit more about benefits. So you have to start weighing those things and seeing what you really care about that. So wage matters, and as we used to say as young people, you really just can't eat benefits. So it does matter with that. So you have to look at those things. So you got health insurance, 401ks, those kinds of things that you're going to look at. Um, flex pays, all those kind of things. Um, your wage or wage rate, you've got a nominal wage and a real wage. Nominal wage is the pay that you see in current dollars, today's dollars, what you do. You got paid, that's your nominal wage. So, they tell you a wage, that's your nominal wage. Your real wage is how much stuff you can buy. Remember, we talk about real income and things like that. So real income is how much stuff, or real wage is how much stuff you can buy with the wage you get. So that is kind of how that is really what wage is. So if you can buy, X amount of food or X amount of other goods with your wage, that is your real wage. So what is the general level of wages nowadays? It's kind of flattened out over time. It's not it was going up for a long time, and now it's kind of flattened out. Oops, that's not really where we want to be. Hit the button a few too many times. All right. Wages of production workers, hourly pay in US dollars for 2020. Germany, around 55. Italy, around 45. US, a little under that, about 43. UK at 40. Canada, a little under 40. South Korea, just under that. Japan, somewhere just over 20. Mexico, somewhere just over 10, like 12 or something like that. China, about 11. Vietnam, just under 10. So your role of productivity, the labor demand depends on productivity, how productive we are. U.S. is a highly productive nation, if you remember that from macro. So productivity. When you go to the BLS website, on the bottom, on that right hand side, that little table on the bottom of that, productivity. It's all pretty much always going up. There's just a lot of capital. We got a lot of access to a lot of capital, natural resources, technology, labor, and all the other stuff. So we're a very highly productive nation. Output per hour and real hourly compensation in the U.S. 70 to 2020. So notice that real hourly compensation and output per hour of work. Real hourly compensation 70 to roughly 2010 was higher than output per hour of work. And there was a wide gap in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And then 2010, it hit there even. And so you're getting paid right there at about hour of work now, output per hour of work now. So there's no real gap. Long run trend to real wages, as you can see there, it's also flattening out. It was going up pretty constantly. It's starting to flatten out as well. Competitive labor market. So purely competitive labor market demand for labor. So some of the firm demand, like carpenters. Market supply, it's upward sloping, so you've got competition among the industries. Labor market equilibrium, marginal revenue product equals the MRC rule, MRP equals MRC rule, like we saw in the last chapter. So how that goes. So here's how that works in a purely competitive thing. Downward sloping MRP, upward sloping supply sets the wage, and they've got it at $20. So that moves over to the firm. And so the firm, that becomes their MRC, downward sloping MRP, and that sets everything up for them for the individual firm. So market to the left, firm to the right. So here's how that goes. Purely competitive, 0 to 6 units, wage rates 20, total labor cost up by 20 each, so 20 to 120, marginal resource cost is 20. Monopsony model. Here, the employer has the buying power. You've got a single buyer of labor, so the labor is either immobile or lacking skills. We typically think of it as immobile. The firm is a wage maker, so they are the ones in control now. You have an upsloping supply to the firm, and the MRC is higher than the wage rate. So, three great examples here are nurses, teachers, and athletes. So here's what this is going to look like. Downward sloping MRP, upward sloping supply. The MRC is, to the left of the supply curve. And so the QM is there at a difference point. So it is there at B. And so that means that, for that one, they are going to be there, and then they're going to pay down on the supply curve. They're at B, but they're not paying at B. They're going to pay down at C on the supply curve. So the wage of the monopsonist, and that's their quantity for the labor there. So it's kind of interesting. Now they have to pay more for every unit of labor that they get, and they have to pay more for every previous unit of labor. So 0 to 6. Wage rates 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. Total labor cost 16. And then when you get to the 17, you got to pay the guy at the second worker 17, but you also have to bring the guy at 16 up to 17. And so 18, you got to bring the person at 2 and 1 up to 18. And so that's how that works. So you really want as little labor as possible because you got to bring everybody up to the current wage rate. So your marginal resource cost or marginal labor cost, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26. And that's because the first one's 16. The second one, it's 17 plus 1, 18 plus 2, 19 plus 3, 20 plus 4. And that's how that works out. So you maximize by hiring smaller number of workers, nurses, professional athletes, teachers. Now, for the most part, especially out in the Midwest, you found a lot of teachers in the Midwest would be married to farmers. They knew this in Kansas. Kansas, a number of years ago, had this whole thing where their budget was completely crap. Yes, Brownback was governor. Back when Kansas was also known as Brownbackistan. But Brownback was governor. They had a complete budget crisis. The Koch brothers had convinced him that he could eliminate taxes and make money, which is just insane, right? So, you can't increase revenue by eliminating taxes or even decreasing taxes. Especially not at the state level. So they completely ran out of money. And they ran out of money in like April. So May, they told their teachers, hey, we got no more money to pay you. You need to go home. So May, June, July, and August, they told their teachers, hey, we can't pay you. And then in September, they offered them contracts again, and they came back. I don't know why, but they came back. Well, I do know why. I mean, they weren't going anywhere. They were married to the guys that farmed on the outskirts of town. So they came back. So they taught again, and lo and behold, they ran out of money again, and they told them to go home again in May. And they didn't get paid May, June, July, and August again, 2 years in a row. They didn't pay him back pay for the first year, didn't pay him back pay for the second year, and hire him back for the third year. So they done, basically screwed him out of 2/3 of a year for 2 years, basically a third of a year, 2 years in a row. And so it's one of those things where it's like, hey, come on back. And they did. And this went on for 4 years, I believe. I think it went on for 4 years. And that was just insane. But these people kept coming back, basically because they weren't going anywhere. And the legislature and the governor knew it. And so they just kept doing it. They counted on the fact that, hey, we're only going to pay our teachers for 8 months out of 12 anyway. We're just going to, they're not going to go anywhere. We're just going to keep doing this. So they counted on screwing teachers. And to an extent, states have done this to teachers for a while. You've got these programs these micro grants that teachers can apply for. States have built that into their budgets, which I think is nuts, but they have done that. Pro athletes, like if you're a top level football player, where else are you going to play other than the NFL? If you're a top level basketball player, where else are you going to play but the NBA? I mean, there's other leagues, but if you're at the top level, where are you going to play? And nurses, now there's travel nursing now, but I mean, like nurses with families, what are you going to do? Now, unions and demand enhancement. This is the worst union model, by the way. You have to increase demand for your good to make money. Good luck with that. So how are you going to increase demand for the good that you produce? That's pretty much on the firm, not on you. So just good luck with that. The rest of these models are pretty solid. Exclusive or craft union model effectively reduces the supply of labor. So we restrict immigration, we reduce child labor, which nowadays you got some states that are increasing child labor, which to me is nuts. We encourage compulsory retirement. You can't work past 55 kind of stuff. We enforce a shorter work week. So we have exclusive unionism and we have occupational licensing, which we'll talk about later. But that is also one of those crazy things. Some of it I get, some of it I don't get. But you have basically exclusive unions. You have to be in the union. You got to be union shop kind of thing. So this limits the number of people that are able to work, decreases the supply. And by decreasing the supply, it increases the wage and decreases the quantity of workers. Increases the wage, decreases the quantity of workers, and therefore we get a higher wage. Inclusive unionism, auto and steel workers. The only workers there are the in the area or in the industry are union workers. That is no longer true, but it was back in the 70s and 80s. And then all of a sudden you had the foreign automakers come in and move to the South where they knew the auto unions were not. So what this is they basically look at it and say, hey, if you want to open a shop, you have to use our workers. And we are going to make you, use our workers. And we're only going to give so many. So this basically creates this shortage of workers. And they're going to make you pay a higher wage for those workers. So the wage increase and the job loss, are they successful? Wages are 15% higher on average. There's higher unemployment in non-union jobs, though, because those people who basically get excluded from the union have to go somewhere and they go to the non-union labor market. So those folks end up with higher unemployment because you have flooded the non-union labor market. And there's a restricted ability for them to demand higher wages. The bilateral monopoly model, so monopsony and inclusive unionism. There's a single buyer and a single seller. Think of the auto industry, right? Not currently, but previously. Um, so you had auto industry and auto unions. You have an indeterminate outcome. Which one is more hard headed? So you had a monopsony, you had a union. The union wants the high wage, the monopsony wants the low wage. Which one's going to give up first? You also have this in um, pro sports. So you have player unions and you have um, pro sports leagues. And so when they go on strike, who's more hard headed? That's basically what it comes down to. And when you look at it, think of it this way, basketball and football are more players' leagues. Baseball is more of an owners' league. Uh, Hockey is somewhere in between. It's kind of a players' league, but it's still very much a hard line owners' league. But it's becoming more of a little bit more of a players' league. But baseball is still very much a hardline owners' league. Those guys are so much a hardline owners' league. They formed a committee to figure out how to why some owners are spending too much money. Um, so the case against minimum wage, basically, if you let the market go, we would have market wage, and basically people would be able to find more jobs. There'd be more jobs out there for everyone. Case for minimum wage, not everybody is looking out for workers' rights, right? Not everybody's looking out for the good of the people. So you have to have a minimum wage to make sure that these people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Um, you know, if you left it up to the workers, they'd work for less than a living wage and they wouldn't be able to afford the stuff that they need to be able to afford. So we have state and locally set minimum wages, which are higher than the federal minimum wage. This is because some states and localities actually have higher costs of living, which is a good thing. And so, and right now we have more of those than we have places under federal minimum wage. So what does that tell you? Most people don't trust the federal minimum wage. We have a couple that are under the federal minimum wage, and they just rely on the federal minimum wage. So that's basically where we are with that. Average annual wages in select occupations: anesthesiologists at 271, petroleum engineers at 154, financial managers at 151.5, law professors at 134.7, pharmacists at 125, civil engineers at 95, registered nurses at 80, dental hygienists at 78, police officers at 67, electricians at 61.5, carpenters at 54, travel agents at 46.6, barbers at 38, janitors at 31.4, retail salespersons at 30 and 940, fast food cooks at 24. So this is kind of how this goes for wage differentials. If you have a normal supply and a high demand, you're going to get a high wage. Normal supply and a low demand, you're going to get a low wage. Normal demand and a low supply, normal demand and a low supply, you're going to get a high wage. Normal demand and a high supply, you're going to get a high wage. So what you want is a normal supply and a high demand, or a normal demand and a low supply. If you're in one of those two markets, you're going to get paid. Wage differences across occupations. What explains this? Some of it's education, some of it's demand and supply, some of it's just MRP. You do have 9 competing groups in this, where basically people are, you can be doing basically the same thing but not competing with each other. You can do this across industry. So you may be thinking, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm studying XYZ, and this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. But you may find out that there is a tangential kind of thing that you could do, and that may become what you end up doing. So you may discover it, you may see it and be like, ooh, that is cool, and be like, yep, that's where I'm going. And you may go there, and it may not be right away, but it may be somewhere early in your career or midway through your career, and you find it, and poof, you are off. And so I know people that have done that. and it is just how it is. So ability plays a part in how much you get paid. Your education and training, which is part of your human capital. Human capital, remember, is your knowledge and skills possessed. So what kind of knowledge and skills do you possess? They will do a lot. They will play a large part in what you get paid. So then there are the compensating wage differences. Um, if it is a very safe job, you don't get paid much. If it is a very unsafe job, you are up there making skyscrapers, you get a compensating wage difference. If it is a dirty job, Mike Rowe's dirty jobs, you get a compensating wage difference. So, those people who do unsafe things, those people who do dirty things, those people who do things that people just don't want to do, they get paid more because other people look at that job and go, yeah, no, I'm out. Have a nice day. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do this thing over here. You go and you do that. And we're okay. We'll pay you more to do that. And so it is just what it is. Education levels, earnings, and employment rates. Doctoral degree, median weekly earnings almost $2,000. Professional degree, still almost $2,000. Master's degree, just over 1,500. Bachelor's degree at around 1,300. Associate's degree, almost $1,000. Some college, but no degree, a little bit under that. High school diploma, somewhere around 750. Less than a high school diploma, just over 500. Um, Doctoral degree and it's just over 2% unemployment rate. Professional degree around 3%. Master's degree is about 4%. Bachelor's degree is almost 6%. Associate's degree is about 7. Some college no degree is just over 8. High school diploma is almost 9, and then less than a high school diploma is almost 12. Note that not only you have a higher unemployment rate, you're unemployed longer with less education, and that is what leads to lower lifetime earnings. So there you go. Other reasons: workers are sometimes prevented from moving to higher paying jobs. Some of this is market imperfections, the lack of job information. You may not know where the jobs are. You may not know like how to get to the job. There's geographic immobility. Some people think, hey, I just cannot move. And my first gig, I was a program coordinator in a college in down in South Carolina, and we were between Charleston and Columbia, and you had people that just refused to cross a river and be like, I got a job for you, but it's in Charleston, can't cross a river. Got a job for you, but it's in Columbia, can't cross a river. Okay, this is going to be hard. And so, you just had that sometimes, and it was just really difficult. So there's that. If you want to, and this is the place I mentioned this was going to come. If you want to make money, be prepared to move. Be prepared to change jobs every 3 to 5 years. And if you want to maximize your total income, if you really want to make the most money, be prepared to learn as much as you can and change jobs every 3 to 5 years. And then if you really want to maximize your income, change regions every 5 to 10 years, so that you're not always in the same state. So, you need to change. And if you're afraid of change, then don't be upset about the fact that you're always getting paid the same thing. And that's okay. And it's fine. If you are, it's okay. It's not that big a thing. But if you just want to maximize your income, that's the way that works. Unions and government restraints, sometimes they will put restraints on pay. And then discrimination is real. Women make about 70 cents on the dollar for men, and African Americans make roughly, I think it's 8 cents on the dollar for what white people make. So those things are real. The principal agent problem, the idea that managers are managers, CEOs are supposed to be looking out for shareholders, but sometimes they look out for themselves a little bit more. And so you have to incentivize people somehow. One way is piece rates. Another is commission or royalty. You have bonuses, stock options, profit sharing, efficiency wages. Costco did that or does that, and it's actually paying people more than what the market wage is for a particular job. There are negative side effects to these. People will manipulate bonuses and stock options. People can manipulate commissions as well. Um, you can manipulate piece rates as well because you just have low quality product. But there's how that goes. Occupational licensing. That makes sense for doctors, EMTs, but there are occupational licensing for interior designers and florists. Like, who cares? Um, Worst case happens, your house gets messed up, and you tell people, and that person never works again. And chances are you take them to court and you get all your money back. But for florists and interior designers, I don't get that. 1 in 3 jobs today require a license. It restricts the competition, increases the price. It's a burden on the consumers and the workers. So, low wage jobs like cosmetology, childcare, floristry, massage therapy, and travel agency require licenses. I understand it for cosmetology, childcare, massage therapy. You want your kids safe. Cosmetology and massage therapy, they can mess you up. Floristry, travel agency, I don't understand it for any of that. That's just trying to steal people's money, in my opinion. That's it for 17. Next up is international trade. Take care, folks.